You are listening to the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience.
Welcome to another episode of Ask Marc Anything, where I simply just answer typically about 3 questions. So if you have any questions for me, it could be property management related, it could be real estate related, like home sales, it could be podcast related. Shoot me an email, leave it in the comments, and we'll put it up on the next episode. So Sam, let's get into the first question.
All right, so our first question is going to be focusing on the Rent Relief Act that Kamala Harris is proposing. So the question is simple. What do you think of the Rent Relief Act proposed by Kamala Harris?
So I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on exactly all the small details in this Relief Act, but based on what I know, what this Relief Act would do is give renters a credit for paying anything above 30% of their income in housing costs. And this is for renters, not property owners. And it's also based on your income. So you'll get most of the credit if you make under $25,000 a year. And the credit dwindles down, and I think it maxes out at $125,000 per year, depending on the area you live in, right? So it's a whole tier system, but I think in the short-term effect, it's gonna be a relief for a lot of renters. However, the problem with these type of relief acts or emergency credits is that there's winners and losers short term, but it's really hard to look at what the long-term effects are going to be. Forbes came out with a really good article on this, that this is actually going to enrich landlords and fleece taxpayers. Their argument is that many of these tenants are going to get some kind of relief, which is great, but then they are going to be able to afford more expensive rent, and they might bid higher on certain properties that they may want because they're going to get some kind of credit. So then the landlord charges higher rent, and now the landlord actually makes more money on the back end, and a problem is not fixed. I understand the reason why they wanted to really pitch out this Relief Act, because rents are skyrocketing all over the nation, not just in the San Francisco Bay Area. You have in Seattle, New York, Miami, everywhere. But the problem is, everyone talks about affordability problem, but affordability really comes down to a simple supply and demand. And when you start putting in regulations and start messing with the free market when it comes down to supply and demand, once you're manipulating markets, it's really hard to tell what the long-term effects will be. I mean, look at what happened in the 70s. Everyone thought rent control was going to be, the end-all solution to skyrocketing rents. Yet now you have Oakland, Berkeley, San Francisco with the highest rents in the nation, yet they've had rent control for many, many years. Richmond placed rent control, and now we're renting properties in Richmond, 2 bedrooms for $2,200. It really has, you have your winners and losers, and the losers are going to be the property owners that own the property when rent control passes. The winners are going to be the people that are living in those units, but long-term wise, it really restricts the actual inventory on the market, and it does the opposite effect. And you have, it's simple supply and demand. You have supply, demand. If your supply drops and your demand stays the same or increases, you're going to have an increase in pricing. And that increase in pricing is what's causing the affordability problem. It's not the fact that rents are really high. There's a really good attorney group that did a study where they showed if 25% of all single-family homes were allowed to build an accessory dwelling unit on their property, basically like an in-law or granny unit, as most people refer to them, it would solve the entire housing crisis. You would have values and rents drop because people would have a affordable place to live. So again, it's really an inventory problem. It's not an affordability problem. So I think it's a very short-term solution to a big problem.
All right, not bad. All right, the next question is, will Zillow take over the rental marketplace with the new features to apply online and collect rent payments online?
So this one's funny because I'm seeing a lot of people that really hate Zillow for just trying to innovate and trying to change what they do. I mean, they're a company, they're going to try to innovate and look for ways to make more money. They're a publicly traded company. And Zillow has a big chunk of home buyers and home sellers that really go to their website to reference what their house is worth or look for properties listed on the market for sale. Well, there's also a lot of people that list their rentals on Zillow. And so I think Zillow really just wants to try to capitalize a bit on the online payments and completing applications. Again, it's all about keeping attention on their website. So if tenants or prospects are able to complete applications directly on Zillow, that's a win for Zillow. It keeps people on their website even longer. Better for advertisers and who they make money off of. If they're able to control online payment, that again, they're keeping people on Zillow website and making their website much more important to the industry. Now, how big of a market share they're going to cut into in the property management industry, I think is going to be extremely small, because being in property management and doing property management now for about a decade, it's very important as a property manager to have very specific software like AppFolio, RentZend, Buildium, Yardi, that handle every aspect of property management. And all these softwares have their own online application, their own online payment that make it very convenient and one-stop shop for the tenant. The tenant's not going to want to go to Zillow, a completely different site that's not related to their property manager website, just to make online payments. It's just not realistic. And for many sophisticated property managers, we already put the link in the ad to download the application, to complete an online application. So I think they'll get a very small market share, but I don't think they're really going to go far with that.
All right, and then the 1-year anniversary of our podcast starting is Friday, August 3rd.
That's crazy.
I know, it seems like just yesterday
Yeah.
when we had Lanny Clark in and posting his first episode. So it's been a year since you started doing the podcast. What have you learned about the community through doing the podcast?
I would have to say that the amazing thing I've noticed is, so doing the podcast has really put me in front of a lot of different people that I probably would have never talked to begin with. And the one thing I've learned is really how passionate people are about what they do, and everyone's own individual journey and their backstory and their history. I think that's probably the most amazing thing to see about the Bay Area community, is just the diversity and just how people are really passionate about what they do. And it could, they may be a scientist, an author, a loan officer, a real estate agent, insurance broker, a musician, a painter, photographer, historical society, whoever they are. It's just really amazing to see the different people that come together and create the community that you live in. The restaurants and just everything. I mean, I can keep going on, and it's just really amazing to see it all happen. And I really encourage anyone out there that if you're thinking about doing some kind of podcast, whether for fun as a hobby or part of your business marketing, I highly recommend to do it, because the one thing for sure that I've seen is my communication skills one-on-one with clients has become much more better. It's a great way to put your name out there. You collaborate with other people. They help put your business out there, your podcast. People discover you. And with podcasting expecting to quadruple in the next 10 years, I think everyone should really consider doing their own podcast, and you can do it for very cheap costs and free. But it's just really an amazing community of people, and really just their passion of why they do what they do, and that's been the greatest thing to see. And the funny thing is, a lot of people now, I don't think we've had anyone mention money as a motivator.
No, it's more just passion.
Yeah, everyone that we've had on the podcast is because they love to do what they're doing. Money's never become an issue. No one's ever said, "Oh yeah, I'm doing this because I can make a ton of money on it."
I mean, that's just more like a side perk or anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone's doing what they do because they're able to, and they just love it. And I think that's the best part, is when you really get to know people's story and understand why they love to do what they do.
And everyone who we've talked to just loves living here too.
Yeah.
That's another thing you see. I mean, just everybody who's come on can't stop raving about how great living here is, which makes sense because it's a pretty awesome place to live here.
Yeah, and so going back to the increased rents too. I mean, there's a reason why there's a reason why rents keep going up, and people want to live in the Bay Area. It's not just jobs, but the location's great. I mean, you're close by water, you're close by Napa, amazing food and restaurants. There's Tahoe, there's Monterey.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, if you live in California, you have access to all different kinds of geography and stuff like that, and the state's just so diverse in every sense. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense why people move here all the time.
Yeah, I recently met an attorney that I was dealing with who was born in Hong Kong, and at 8 years old he moved to Michigan, and I guess he was in a small town in Michigan, and there was like no diversity. He said they were the only Asian family like in that town of Michigan. And when he got older, he moved out to the Bay Area, and he says the Bay Area is an amazing place to live. He lives in Oakland right now, and he says it's amazing, the diversity. Like you just feel okay here.
Yeah.
Everyone feels great.
I mean, the idea of living in a place where like everyone is essentially looking the same seems very foreign to me.
Yeah, and he felt uncomfortable too, because he said people would look at him all the time, just stare at him, and not so much at racism or anything, but just curiosity.
Like it's different. Yeah.
And he just felt a little weird and uncomfortable with everyone just staring at him all the time, because he was the only Asian person.
The downsides of sticking out.
Yeah. And here in the Bay Area, everyone's blending in together. It's all the diversity, and he loves it here. But that's a perfect example of why the demand here is so high, is that people just love to live in the Bay Area.
It's a good thing that we can play our part in that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just there's way more to the housing market, and so many different it's so complex, when you start analyzing the demand, why people want to live here. It's much more than just jobs, or much more than the fact that more people are moving in with money. I mean, it's everyone wants to live here in the Bay Area, and people that move out want to come back. And if rents dropped, they would come back. It's just people want to live in the Bay Area, and if they can make it happen, they're gonna make it happen. Even if it's 2 or 3 families moving in together, people figure out a way because they want to stay here. And I think when you really look at all those different factors of what creates a demand around the Bay Area, then it explains why people are willing to pay more to live here.
Definitely.
So thanks for watching, and let's see, what episode do we have coming up? We've got Alex aired yesterday.
Alex was yesterday. We got
so make sure
Stephen
watch Alex.
Lowe and Sean next week.
Okay.
He's coming on Friday. His episode goes up Tuesday, I believe.
Okay, I do want to tell people to go watch or listen to Alex's episode. He owns Nisa Truck, which is a gelato and espresso food truck, which is very cool concept. Probably the first half of the podcast, we really dove into what makes a business successful. Really good talk, and then we transitioned into what he does with his food truck. So check out the episode. Find it on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and you can watch it on Facebook and YouTube.
All right, and then it's actually a Leslie Crawford's episode goes up Tuesday.
Perfect. So great. I really, really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.